George Floyd, you know that unemployed drug addict
Oh, wow.
with
Sure.
the criminal record?
Sure.
Were you surprised when the blacks blamed the cop rather than blaming the unemployed drug addict for his death? Were you surprised when the blacks did that?
Do you believe? No, I don't see a problem with it. I'm answering your question first.
Yeah,
Okay.
were
No,
you surprised when
wait, hold
the
on really
blacks
quickly.
pretended that it was the cops' problem instead of, the cops' fault that George Floyd is dead, when George Floyd was an unemployed drug addict with a criminal record?
So do you
Were you
think?
surprised at the blacks' reaction to that?
Well, do you think that an unemployed drug addict? Do you think that because he was unemployed and addicted to drugs, which I'm not even sure he was addicted to drugs, but whatever, but do you think because he was unemployed, and let's assume addicted to drugs, that somehow in and of itself resulted in the compression on his neck that denied his brain
You
oxygen?
didn't answer my question.
I am answering it.
No, I asked you a question. I asked you, were you surprised at the reaction of the blacks when the unemployed drug addict with the criminal record
Jeez. Man, you really hate yourself in some ways, but it's sure. So no, I'm not surprised.
Were you surprised that the blacks blamed the cop and not the addict?
I am not surprised that the cops blame, that the black people, or not just black people, obviously a jury of his peers found it who were not black. Obviously coroners were not black in this scenario. I'm not surprised that the vast majority of sane people were able to recognize that the suppression on his neck resulted in a lack of oxygen, which ultimately caused his death. Both an independent coroner and the other coroner both found this to be true. So no, I would not be surprised that people who had access to the actual information released by the coroner were able to identify that this cop's action by putting his knee on his neck for that amount of time resulted in his death. So no, that's not surprising at all.
You're saying, no, Jesse, I'm not surprised at the blacks blaming the cops rather than the unemployed drug addict with the record, with criminal record.
If that's what you took from that. But let me ask you this. Do you blame the coroner?
I want to be clear. You're not
I know. I answered the question very directly.
Are you saying yes? No, Jess, I'm not surprised at the reaction of the blacks.
I think I answered it with some additional information.
But I didn't hear yes or no.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'll say it one more time. Let me fully answer it. No, I'm not surprised.
Oh, okay.
Hold on. No, I'm not surprised.
All right.
I got you. No, I'm not surprised, especially considering the information from the coroner clearly demonstrated that the suppression on his neck was caused by the officer, which resulted in his death. Do you think that a person being unemployed and and addicted to drugs would somehow result in compression in their neck, denying their brain oxygen?
I think that he gets what he deserved. He doesn't care about his own life.
Jesse.
If he had cared about his own life, he would not have been a drug addict and a criminal record.
So do you believe because...
Am I right about that?
I totally agree.
Of all,
yes, I do agree. I think that a person who values their life would probably not be addicted to drugs or have criminal records.
And secondly,
but would
if
you
his
say...
knee wasn't on the neck.
Would you... Okay. Did the knee, where the knee was placed...
Near the neck, but not on the neck.
Sure. Where it was placed, did it result in the cessation of oxygen, of required oxygen to his brain that resulted... So you disagree with the coroner?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So did you go to medical school? Where'd you get this information?
I went to common sense school.
Oh, so common sense says that a coroner would just lie and make up that compression on the neck.
No, the people around him lied and made it up.
But the coroner
himself
himself
let me do this
said
because of time.
Okay, got you. We're
I
moving
don't want
past
to argue about that.
You're right. You're right.
Because time is going by really fast here.
You're right.
You said, it's been written here that you said you didn't want to pick up food because you would have to drive through wealthy neighborhoods, and you thought the cops were going to pull you over. You said if I could put on a white skin for 30 minutes while I go make food run, I would do it and I wouldn't feel nervous anymore. Did you say that?
For sure.
Why would you say something like that?
Well, I happen to live in a pretty nice neighborhood. It's like super duper predominantly white.
You say you live in a neighborhood like that?
Sure, it's on the rich side of town, and I think in the middle of all of the unrest, I would say the trauma caused by the George Floyd situation.
You were traumatized by that?
Absolutely.
How old are you?
I'm 37 now.
And you were traumatized by George Floyd thing?
For sure.
What?
Do you not? Well, I know you're not a psychologist.
What?
Yeah, I get it. I know you probably struggle with psychology. But sure, so I would say that, and it wasn't just that one in and of itself.
Are you grown or are you a baby?
I think I'm a pretty grown man.
How you going to be traumatized by something like that?
Do you think grown men can't be traumatized?
No. They
Oh, okay.
can if they're in a fallen state, but
Oh, you have to be in a fallen state.
go ahead, explain
Yeah,
why.
basically, so what it was is I live in a pretty rich neighborhood, and ultimately I recognized that, like, I saw the circumstances around not just George Floyd, but then the surrounding events as well, and all of the other people, Ahmaud Arbery, and so on and so forth, and the lack of accountability for cops gave me pause to consider the fact that if I am driving, at the time I was driving a much worse car than I am now, and I felt somewhat uncomfortable with the idea that, man, me in this car, in this neighborhood, will stick out like a sore thumb, and I can imagine police officers wanting to give me specific attention being a black man in this neighborhood in this car. And so that gave me a little bit of pause and made me feel somewhat a tinge of trepidation. Ultimately, I would go
Wow.
get the food, but I think that sort of thing, I'm a very risk-averse person.
Amazing.
And I would say
So
that
why
made
don't you
me
move out
nervous.
of your little rich white neighborhood?
Why should I?
But you're afraid of the whites.
No, I'm not afraid of the whites. What is it? I'm sorry. I don't know how you got that
You've
from
been
what I said.
traumatized.
Do you think that the trauma
So
would
how do
disappear
you
if I was in a black
travel around
neighborhood?
in your white neighborhood
I drive in.
knowing that the cops may drive up behind you? What you doing over here, boss?
I've adjusted and I drive around with faith in God that I will be protected, and that's how I live my life.
Amazing. And you said you have gone exclusively black dating now.
Absolutely.
No more white dating.
No.
Why only black?
Well, so I would say that I felt the need. I think it's important for me to make sure that I raise my children without this need for, without experiencing internalized racism. That's my goal. I think it's an important thing because that was a really painful thing that I went through, having experienced it. And so I feel like the easiest way to do that is to instill self-love from the very beginning. And I think a black woman would probably be more equipped in helping my child to inherit that black love and that self-love and to distance himself
So
from
you
internalized
want your
racism.
child to have black love,
For sure.
but black love is dark and evil.
I don't even know how to engage with that one, Jesse.
Do you think God's love is black?
I don't think God's love has a color.
But what is black love then?
Oh, black love is like the love of one, because we are black, like you and I. Although you might forget it sometimes, I would say that the love of ourselves. I would say black love,
But
like
black
as a
people
black
don't
man, to
have
love
love.
yourself. I think that a lot of times, what do you mean by that?
Black people don't have love.
There's no, Jesse, do you have love?
No, but most.
Okay. I don't know how to engage with that. I would say that black people have love, but I do think you're right that we are lacking some forms of self-love because of like the historic Jim Crow laws and some of the colorism and things like that have been instilled within
No,
black
that's
culture.
not why y'all lack love, man. The
Oh.
reason the blacks don't have love is that they hate God.
Oh, but I love God.
No,
How do I not love God?
because you can't love God and Satan too, man.
I don't love Satan.
Let me ask you this. Do you love white people?
I love every people.
Do you love white people?
Sure, I love them too.
Do you love white people?
I love white people too, yes.
Do you love white people?
I just answered the question.
Do you love white people?
As much as I do everyone else, yes. So I love white
Do
people.
you love white people?
I love black people, so yes, I love white people too.
Do you love white people?
Yes. It's such a simple, reductive question, but sure, I take from it what you want.
But why don't you just answer yes?
Because it's really reductive.
What do you mean?
Because, well, for example, I love all people.
But I didn't ask you about all people.
I know you didn't, but if I don't answer it in that way, someone can take away from it. If I don't follow it up or provide more context, they can take
No.
that, oh, you only love white people.
No, they're
Right?
taking away that you don't love white because you got to add everybody else into it.
Ooh, I don't know if that's not how language works.
No, I asked you, do you love white people?
Sure.
Sure, I love everybody. Do you love white people? Sure, I love
So if the
white
answer is
people
sure,
too.
sure
Do you
means
love white
yes.
people? Sure, I love white people, but I love my dog too.
Why you do my voice so high like that, Jesse? Knock that off.
No. So,
I was 25 years old when I started my anti-aging skincare journey, and the main ingredient that I was looking to incorporate was
do you support Black Lives Matter,
No, the organization or the movement?
the movement?
Oh, I support the movement, but I think the movement is distinct from the organization.
And what's the difference between the movement and the organization?
Well, the organization is a specific select body that have their own ideology, which seems like it's rooted in some forms of Marxism and other things like that, which I completely distance myself from. I think capitalism is the absolute best economic system on the planet. However, I think the movement, I think most people in the movement who would use the slogan and things like that, considering how decentralized the movement is, are completely disconnected from the organization as a whole. And I support what the movement movement is focused on, which is to make sure that black lives are being valued in such that there would be justice for people who do wrong to black lives. But the organization is on some other nonsense that I have nothing to do
But the so-called movement was started by a bunch of fat, black, radical, socialist, communist lesbians, right?
Okay. So,
lesbian. And
sure,
so
but that
if
might be the
they're- if
genetics
they're
fallacy.
Anti-God, they don't believe in God. How could the movement be right, knowing that the founders were wrong?
Well, that could be the genetics fallacy. For example, in this case, maybe these individuals did that, right? But then again, if we start moving and doing something independent of that, then at that point, then I don't think it
That's
necessarily.
amazing. What did you think about the blacks attacking the Asians people, knocking them out, robbing them on the streets, and the media blaming it on white people?
Oh, well, I'm sorry. I thought that the FBI actually released information that detailed that the vast majority of hate crimes against Asian Americans were coming from white people.
But you didn't see white people doing it. You did see black people doing it. So
I saw
what
both.
did you think when they would show black people attacking the Asians?
The guy who
but
shot up that
when
spa in
but-
Texas, he
but
was
when
white.
they mentioned it, they would say white people doing it. What did you think about that when you saw that?
That didn't happen. The guy who shot up that
They
spa in
did.
Texas was white.
One guy, right?
That was
But
5
all
women.
the other hundreds of black people were knocking Asians out in the streets and robbing them, and they were blaming it on the whites. So when you looked at the video, you saw white people too,
So
instead
Jesse,
of the
do you
blacks?
just ignore data?
No, I'm asking you. When you saw it was black people doing it, but you heard white people doing it, did you see white instead of black?
I heard people actually saying black people were doing it, and then the data finally actually revealed that white people were doing
But
it.
when you
And so we
saw
were
the real
incorrectly
people-
assigned guilt on that thing.
When you saw white, that it was black doing it,
I didn't.
in your mind you thought you saw white.
I don't think I really saw a lot of imagery. I didn't really follow the imagery, but I think I just read a lot of a lot of articles, and I read and I looked at the data.
Do you believe there's such a thing as white supremacy?
Oh, for sure. Do you not?
do. And why do you believe that white people are superior to you?
I don't believe white people are superior.
But then
to
why
me.
do you call them white supremacy if you don't believe they're superior to you?
White supremacy is an ideology. It is a belief system, and so white people can hold the belief that they are superior to me. They can. They're
but
just
white
not.
people don't believe that. But
Do you believe there are no white people that believe that they're superior to
maybe you
black
can
people?
find one or two, but
One
it's
or
the
two.
black people who see the white people superior to them. Why do the blacks see white people superior to them?
I don't believe that that's what white
You
supremacy
hear it from
means.
their mouth all the time.
What,
so
the
they
phrase
do
white
see it that way.
supremacy?
Yeah, from the blacks.
No, that's
Why
a reference.
do the blacks see white people superior to them?
That's a reference to an ideology, not to a state of being.
What does that mean? In the blacks' mind,
Do
they
you not?
believe.
You don't know what ideology means?
Yeah, but are you saying that in the blacks' mind they believe whites are superior?
no.
But it's not real.
No, the blacks believe that the whites believe. I know this is 2 layers, so it might be hard for
But
you
the
to follow.
whites don't ever say that about themselves.
So there's no white nationalist
You
organizations.
never hear. No, you never hear that.
You've
from
never
the
heard for
white.
anyone calling for an ethno-state, white people?
Well, I mean, aren't you a nationalist?
No, I don't consider myself a nationalist.
You're not a nationalist.
No.
Were you
why
born?
don't-
Here, were you born here in America?
Sure.
And you don't put your country first?
I put God first,
Not America.
not America first.
So
no.
you're not. You don't believe in your country being first.
Not before God, absolutely not.
Amazing.
Wait, you put your country before God?
You the one added God, but
I'm
put
asking
my
you, do you
country
put your
before
country- do
any
you put-
other country?
Okay.
America
before other
first.
countries? Sure.
America
Yeah.
first. So you're a nationalist.
I don't think that's what nationalist means.
It
But I'm,
is.
you know what? I don't have the definition in
It
front of me,
means
so you might
putting
be
your
right.
country before other countries.
Okay, if that's the case, then yeah, I probably put my country before others.
So you're a nationalist,
I have to read the word to be able to see that.
but you believe in putting your country first before
Sure.
other countries.
I do believe in doing
So
that.
you're a nationalist.
Okay, if that's what you believe that a nationalist is, then
So,
sure, I'll accept that.
you're a black nationalist.
I'm a nationalist who is black. Is that what you're trying to say?
You're a black nationalist.
Do you understand the difference between a nationalist and a black nationalist and a nationalist who is black? Or do you
Yeah,
not think that those three
a
things
black-
are distinct?
A nationalist is a black man who put his country first. A nationalist is a black man who put the country first, or a country who put the black man, whatever, right? It's still.
Oh, yeah, so you
you're
don't know
still
the
a black
difference.
nationalist.
Okay, if that's what you believe.
You don't believe you are,
No, I don't.
but you say you put your country first, right?
But I hear you. But black nationalist has all sorts of different connotations.